Oh, hello. And welcome. We're going to do some bike repair today. An important part of bike maintenance is cleaning your bike. Making sure you get all the schmutz off. Because any dust and debris, dirt, sand, will eventually one day cause you problems and get somewhere it doesn't need to be. So make sure you clean off your bike thoroughly before you start doing any maintenance. As you can see, after sitting for a while, these tires have lost some air. We're going to want to pump them up before we get started. Make sure that it's not a flat tire and it is in fact just low on air. This is a Presta valve stem. These are road bike tires, so we're going to inflate to 110 psi. And we're going to keep an eye on them as we continue to maintain the bike. And if they really rapidly lose air, we'll know that we'll need to replace the tube. This is an important step to do before you start maintaining the bike, because by the time you're finished doing the bike, time will have elapsed and you'll be able to better tell if air has escaped. Whereas if you were to start this test after you've finished the bike, you could lose air after you walk away, and then you'll never know. We will be worrying about a few key things today as we just do a basic bicycle adjustment. We're going to be worrying about the brakes, the brake adjustment, make sure the pads are okay and the brake tension is appropriate. We're going to be worrying about the front and rear derailleur, make sure they shift properly when shifted up top. We're going to be taking a look at the chain overall, making sure that's okay. We've already done a preliminary check of the tire pressure, and we'll just do a final check over all the last little nuts and bolts to make sure the bike's not going to fall apart. We'll start with the brakes. To make sure the brake adjustment's good, you're going to want to put the bicycle on the ground, release the quick release with the bicycle on the ground so that your axles are properly in your dropouts, so that the wheel is centered in the bike frame, so that you know that the wheel is where it needs to be, and you adjust the brakes to the wheel's presence. This is a road bicycle, but to make it a little more fun, it's been outfitted with cross brake levers here. And so you can trigger the front brake either with that lever or your standard STI lever. A couple of things governing the adjustment of the brake. We've got overall tension in the cable, and you've got how centered it is on the wheel, whether or not one pad is getting there first. Give the wheel a spin, we don't hear any rubbing. And we see that the brake pads are adjusted evenly to the braking surface on the wheel. That would be adjusted by the little set screw here, which we can adjust with a Phillips or flathead screwdriver. Overall cable tension is adjusted by this 5mm Allen key. We have this quick release here, giving you a broad widening of the brake pads from the wheel, so you can take the wheel off and on the bike. And you lock that in when you're riding so that your brakes are nice and snug, both here and on your cross lever. You do have inline barrel adjusters on your cross part here. You can just roll this barrel in and out to get a quick adjustment while you're on the bicycle. We do the same for the rear. Give a preliminary spin, grab on the brake levers, both of them, to make sure everything's hunky-dory. While the tension is appropriate here, we discovered that this pad is making contact with the braking surface sooner, so we're going to come in and adjust our centering with this screwdriver and scoot both pads over a little bit. Much more centered we feel, and we get a nice even rotation through there. Derailleur adjustment is a tricky one to do right now for you all. It's not that complicated. It just takes a little finessing, a little time and practice and repetition to get it right. And that's the kind of thing you can't just do in a quick video right now. Suffice to say, there are a few things that do govern derailleurs and their proper shifting. You've got two main adjustments. One is cable tension, whether or not the cable itself has enough tension to pull the derailleur all the way in, all the way out. The other adjustment is your limit screws here up on the top, and they control just how far the derailleur will actually travel. Balancing those two things and adjusting them in the proper sequence is the best way to get all your ducks in a row so that your gears shift properly. The one other important thing to note on derailleur adjustments before I get started is with index shifting, you're supposed to get one shift per click, and if you've ridden a bike within the past 20 years, I'm sure you've come across index shifting and either some sort of ratcheting motion, some sort of clicking motion at your shifters, and that should give you one cog larger or smaller to make your shifting easier or to make your pedaling more easy or more difficult. One great way to check on your chain before you give your bike the go-ahead is you want to just take a look at your chain, make sure there's no sticky links, no bent links. Inspect where it meets the cassette. I'm going to hit this chain with a little tri-flow, which is just a lubricant. Just hit it with a couple of drops and they'll work their way through. That will protect the chain against the elements this winter. Remember that time we wanted to make sure our tires were properly inflated and that they would stay that way? Well, still got air. Still got air, and in sufficient quantities as to be rideable. I checked all the bolts covering the derailleurs, the brakes, up at the headset to make sure that they're solid and won't fall apart, and I give this bicycle the Matthew Desi stamp of rideability.